Oh, listen to that. It's the sound of pure joy. There's something so wonderful about babies laughing. It's impossible to not get flooded with mood-lifting endorphins when you hear them. I'm sorry, let's just enjoy a few seconds more. Okay, down to business. Welcome to Hello Happiness and to our 4th episode on joy. Hello Happiness is a podcast series that's all about positive emotions, brought to you by Welcome Collection, the free museum and library in London that challenges us to think and feel differently about health. I'm Bidisha, I'm a broadcaster and filmmaker, and in this episode, I'm taking you on a joyride. The laughter we heard just now is baby William Nilsson, recorded by his dad and uploaded to YouTube back in 2006. It's now had over 100 million views, the 10th most viewed YouTube video of all time. But why are we so hooked on watching infants giggle? Does it take us back to more carefree and innocent times? I could listen to babies' laughter all day, but I need to be rigorous here. So we called in historian of emotion Thomas Dixon, who was the academic consultant for Welcome Collection's On Happiness season. Let's hear his take.
Well, the word joy is a very old English word, but we can also trace it back to Old French, joie, and joie means joy, but it also means a jewel. And I rather like that idea of joy as the jewel amongst our emotions, something rare, colourful, beautiful, and extremely valuable that brightens up an otherwise dreary life. For some people, joy is at its height when it's a collective thing. You might imagine a mass of people at a music gig or perhaps at a football match, and there's that roar of a crowd that is this very special sense of collective joy. But for other people, and I would include myself in this, happy moments might come with a smaller group or even on your own. So I don't think there's any single recipe for joy that has to be collective. And indeed, you might find in the people you've spoken to for this episode that different people mean different things by joy. That for one person, it's a collective euphoria. For others, it's a sort of solitary bliss or something slightly less sociable. In different cultures, there will be different ideas about how far you can expect joy, pleasure, delight, and happiness during your earthly life, and to what extent you have to wait until your rewards in heaven. Although I think that for most religions, the rewards in heaven are so extremely blissful and euphoric that they're probably quite hard to imagine, and that all but the most severe of religious philosophies, I think, would allow us some moments of earthly pleasures while we're in our mortal human realm. For me, one of the things about joy is that it is a transient thing. It's fleeting, it comes and goes, it can surprise us. C.S. Lewis wrote a book called Surprised by Joy, and I find that joy can come unexpectedly, and that is part of the value of it. The idea of trying to be joyful for days or weeks at a time, or even hours at a time, I think is perhaps unrealistic, depending on what you mean by joy. For me, joy is that quite rare and quite special moment of really great pleasure, great delight that comes and then it goes.
Thomas Dixon reminding us never to let a chance for joy pass us by. So, back to the laughing babies. I managed to catch a moment with comedian Deliso Chaponda and Dr. Casper Adiman, a developmental psychologist who's been investigating baby laughter as his actual job. And I asked Casper, why do babies laugh?
It's because they are joyful, I think, at a fundamental level, but it's also a really useful signal that they can reassure parents that they are having a good time.
Deliso, this is something I'm absolutely fascinated by because you're a comedian. What is it like to walk into a room where they are essentially asking you, okay, you bring the joy, you make me laugh?
I love it, but it's because since I've been very young, I very early on realized that my superpower was I have always known I can make people laugh. So I love it, and it's where I'm most comfortable.
Are there any rules that you've developed for joyfulness that certain fail-safes will make other human beings feel joy?
I suppose it's a perspective thing. It's that I've trained my perspective that whenever something bad happens to me or happens in the world, I don't just look at the event or the moment and just feel it. I immediately try to find what's funny in it and what's absurd in it and what's light in it. Then my job is to share it with everyone else. So, be it a pandemic, which is depressing and painful and frustrating, be it being fired, be it a racist event, all these things can be depressing. But I've been training myself since a pretty young age to look for the funny. And so once I've got the funny, I tell everybody.
Casper, you've worked a lot on what babies find funny and the idea of young infantile laughter. What do babies find funny? Why do they find a game like peekaboo so delightful?
It's partly what's funny, and it's partly just a pure expression of joy and happiness. So it doesn't always have to be the funniness of it. So peekaboo is a brilliant example of this. So obviously there is that moment of surprise, but by like 18 months or so, you pretty much know what the joke is. And it's more that when you play peekaboo, you are giving that baby your undivided attention and you're deliberately entertaining them. They laugh to keep you doing it as much as anything.
I love what you both say about joyfulness being to do with collective experience, connection, relationships. Casper, does joy have some sort of evolutionary motive behind it? Does it keep us alive somehow?
Laughter certainly does. Yeah, so laughter is what's called an honest signal. It's something that it's very difficult to fake. And actually, when somebody is faking it, you know they are. The best description of laughter is that it's the shortest distance between two people. So the idea is that it exists as a bonding mechanism, which works between two complete strangers, but works really well also between like a tiny baby who hasn't got any language whatsoever with this adult that seems so far away from them on many levels, but that you can connect together through laughter. And this was one part of what held us together in social groups early on in evolutionary history.
Deliso, you are the perfect person to go in and see all of these audiences as evolutionary test cases. What have you discovered about laughter and joy as it operates within a group? At the end of the day, it's you're isolated, you're persuading strangers towards laughter and joy.
Well, I feel like laughter is how we cope with things that are unexplainable and things that are painful, particularly in friend groups. So, for example, when you lose your job or something terrible like that, it's not funny, it's painful. But within a week, you've got mates making jokes about how you're an unemployed bastard or something like that. And then as a comedian, I am sort of your non-friend group person who allows you to laugh at all sorts of things. I will do jokes about often horrific things that have happened or common pain that everybody goes through, like breakups or families. I will have created a joke which lets you laugh at it.
Casper, do you think it's easier to laugh on your own or to laugh with people? I mean, it's very rare to hear a baby laughing by themselves in an empty room.
Well, I'm glad you asked. I mean, we've actually run this experiment. So we had toddlers on their own in groups of 2 or in groups of 6 watching Bernard the bear, the cartoon with a very clumsy bear. And then we've counted how many times they laughed and smiled. And when they're on their own, they laugh sort of about once every so often. And when they're just with one other child, it goes up by a factor of 8. So they're laughing 8 times as much.
Deliso, I'm not saying that comedy audiences are like a room full of toddlers, but is that also true for grown-ups, that sharing the laughter and the joy makes it expand?
I would say yes. The more people there are in a room, the more laughter. There's always infectious laughter. So sometimes I'm making them laugh. Sometimes they're laughing because I made someone with a very loud laugh start laughing, and it gets everybody in the mood for laughter. That's also why laugh tracks work. Even if they're not in the room, hearing other people laugh at the joke helps us laugh.
Casper, is laughter something which has been a permanent feature of all human societies, or are there cultures which regard laughter as some completely peculiar behaviour that only an alien would engage in?
It seems to be universal, and it actually, evolutionary, it's really, really old. Chimpanzees, gorillas all laugh. Even rats seem to laugh. Culturally, it varies. So in Russia, you don't really smile in public, but laughter is still, and joking is still a part of that culture. But yeah, it's definitely a human universal.
Deliso, do you think there's something cynical or manipulative about making other people laugh? I mean, what do you get from it?
I don't think so. What's amazing about being a joke teller in front of people is every word you say, you immediately get immediate feedback as to whether they find it funny, whether they don't find it funny, and it's the most communicative art. So I actually think a joke is an offer. I find this funny, do you? And then if they also find it funny, they laugh. If they don't find it funny, they just look at you, or at worst, they say, "That's not funny, mate." So
Casper, is there something brave about joyfulness in adults and a readiness to laugh? It seems to me that once you pass a certain age, it's seen as simple or imbecilic if you are a joyful, quick to laugh person.
Yeah, I'm quite a joyful person, so I do feel that it's awfully unfair that we can't laugh in so many different situations. I think sort of one of the places where, sadly, that we get taught that is at school, where there's a lot to get through, so we just haven't got time for frivolity. But if we can unlearn that and really be more joyful, be more deliso, it wouldn't be a bad idea.
Deliso, do you agree with that joyfulness, that laughter are brave things? They're actually forms of healing and resistance.
yes, and I actually think I just skipped the bit where you're taught not to do this anymore. I teach comedy in workshops, and what I've noticed is when I do it with really young people, they're all very funny and they are all very quick to laugh. And then when I do the same workshop to 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, it's much more difficult. So somewhere in that growing up process, the fool inside of you is taught not to come out. And for me, the fool stayed out. But I think a little bit more silliness would be wonderful in a lot of spheres. Imagine we weren't just laughing at the politicians. Imagine they were funny, right?
I'm interested in the physical health implications of laughter. If you are a kid that's grown up laughing at things, does it have a knock-on effect on, I don't know, wound healing, your resistance to the common cold?
I've never seen any good evidence for that. There are a lot of people who are deliberately making themselves laugh in the feeling that it will make them better. So that's something called laughter yoga. They think it works. I think the scientific consensus is still out at the moment.
Just on that, I don't know if it was scientifically backed up, but I do remember Patch Adams, who was a clown who also was a doctor, spoke a lot about how he felt, especially with children, laughter and having a lot of laughter around the wards aided them in not just feeling better, but also getting better quicker.
Yes, there's even a charity in the UK called Theodora who organise these giggle doctors to go into UK hospitals. And these are trained clowns who visit children who are in hospitals for extended periods for precisely that reason, to give them something joyful and something positive.
Casper, sticking with you, what for you is the relationship between joy and laughter? Is the joy the feeling and the laughter the expression?
I think that's a good way to think about it. Yeah. So joy is something that is just within you, and then laughter is a way of communicating that with other people. One nice description of laughter is that it's a smile that bursts. It's where the joy just sort of leaps out at you.
Bidisha, do you agree with that? What is the relationship between joy and laughter?
Well, I actually think joy is something far bigger than laughter. I mean, we aspire to joy. We don't necessarily aspire to laughter. Also, you can be depressed and you can laugh, and it's like brief respite from your depression, but you're not necessarily joyful. But I do still think that laughter is one of the steps on the way to joy.
Bidisha, what makes you happy?
Friends makes me happy. Like, having like a group of friends, even just one friend, spending time friend, that's all my joy.
Casper, what makes you happy?
The babies. I've been very lucky that my job is to meet the happiest people in the world, little babies. And you learn a lot from just seeing that they are happy and joyful about the simplest things, and try and do the same to actually just be joyful at the whole universe without having to analyze it too much.
Dr. Casper Adaman and Bidisha Chaponda reminding us to let our inner jester and our inner laughing baby come out and play. And now a happy thought. In each episode, we invite one of our favourite people to take on the theme we're exploring. Today, it's Shula, real name Priscilla Bajomo, a London-based musician and the composer of all of the lovely music you've been hearing throughout this series. Her work's been described as endlessly beautiful, twisted neo-soul. For today's Happy Thought, she tells us how music and creativity are sources of joy for her.
Music is something that I've always turned to for peace and for joy, and as kind of a form of escape ever since I was growing up, be that listening to music or also playing music. Just kind of sitting down at the piano and improvising is one of the most joyful things that I can do just alone with myself. When I perform live, I think it turns into a really joyful experience the second I hit the stage, because you get to see real people react to music in real time, and it's just such a beautiful thing that only really exists in that moment, essentially. Not all of my music is that danceable, but when it is, the happiest thing to me is seeing people dance, because I think dancing is just such an amazing thing that makes me feel better, and I dance alone in my room all the time. I think dancing is another kind of just great shared collective experience that can just bring so much happiness and joy. I have this one song called All Mine, which is probably the song that people tend to dance to the most. It's very inspired by like UK garage music, so it kind of has like a bit more of a kind of upbeat vibe. And the song is about, I guess, the first time like you meet someone and like you have a crush or something like that, and the kind of feelings that are really like excited and you're joyous and also curious, and all of those kind of emotions that happen like during the early stages of a relationship.
Won't you tell me something new I'm making? I wanna feel the whole of you. take the wheel, I won't lead you down a foreign route. I'm just here to share my truth with all the joys that life can breathe. Oh, it's just sweet, nothing on cue for me. Oh, each one just like a tattoo. Within pain move, these words won't be moved from here. It's the only me. It told me like all the time you leave. Can't you see? The only one who's broken, the thing who is holding me. Why are we here again? Already gave me everything I need. All my words unspoken, like a windy opening.
Oh, that's so good. It makes me think of driving home at 3 o'clock in the morning after a really good night out. That was Sola, S-O-L-A, if you're looking for her online, and the track was called All Mine. Sticking with the joys of artistic creation, Travis Alabanza is a writer and performer known for their on-stage explorations of gender, trans identity, and race. They contributed an essay to the Penguin anthology Black Joy, and in between all that, we had time for a very fun ice cream date in town.
I love nothing more than getting a little ice cream spot, you know? So this is it.
Let's see. Oh my God, these are amazing.
Can I taste cookies and cream and raspberry sorbet?
Raspberry sauce.
And I'll have the stracciatella.
Yeah.
And the cookies and ice cream, actually, yeah.
Cookies and cream.
Yeah, please.
I always loved stage because I got to be all the things that on the street I couldn't be. And there is nothing more joyful than that feeling of, oh my God, here's all these parts of myself that I can't do in real life, and here I'm being applauded for them. When I make my own work, I am just a version of me that doesn't get to exist in the day-to-day, and being able to make people laugh or go from laugh to cry or laugh to shock, or that power and that thing, it's extremely fun and joyful to do. But also, I love fashion, I love clothes, I love design, I love aesthetic, and I find joy in all those things. But when you walk from A to B looking like that joy is halted by other people's projections, other people's insecurities. But on stage, those things are celebrated. You do a reveal of a clothing item and people go wild. And that is the same clothing item that you could wear on the streets and people hurl abuse at you for. So for me, it's that stark difference that when I'm on stage, these things are just free.
Tell me something. Was it a long or a hard journey for you to get to the joyful, confident person you are now? The ones that's opposite me wearing a fantastic turquoise faux fur jacket.
Well, I think it's important with joy to always be it's never linear, Some days I wake up and I feel crap like everyone else, and some days I don't feel confident. But what I've learned as someone that, depending on what era you'd either call flamboyant, camp, or trans, is that people always will say, oh, you must be so confident, or you must be this. But actually, this is just me. I think the confidence to do that, though, is definitely a journey. At the beginning, I didn't think twice. I think sometimes people think, oh, you start ashamed and then you get to shameless. But actually, I was shameless growing up. And then something happened in 16, 17, when I was like, this is a lot. My choices are making other people react in such visceral ways. Is it worth it? And then, I had to do a journey to be like, oh, but I'm having much more fun doing this than blending in. But when I was 18, I went for a stage. My friends always take the piss out of it. I just wore all black. And I went for 7 months of no one looking at me and just wearing it. And everyone's like, you're so chic. And I was like, yes, it's very chic, isn't it? bored, miserable.
I'm laughing because it is very chic. It doesn't sound very you.
No, not at all. There was not a one clashing pattern in sight, you know? I was like, oh my God, let's find a print, quick.
I get the minimalism of that. It's almost as if you're saying, I'll be so chic that there's nothing to say about it.
It was that. But you know, then I started talking and people still called me a faggot. So I was like, well, if you're going to call me a faggot, I might as well look like a real faggot. You know, now when people shout, I'm like, fair enough, actually.
Well done, you.
Yeah.
Because you spotted a wild, beautiful animal out in the jungle and you said it.
Exactly.
I like what you say about fluctuations of joy. Do you think joy is a decision, a daily decision?
Yes, but sometimes that choice, depending on your circumstances, is easier to make or not.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes so much shit is happening that actually you don't have time to think about a choice, or the choice is so far out of reach, maybe. And I think it would be very easy for me to say now, when my life has changed and I feel like I have space and time to make decisions, to go, yeah, it's a choice. Yeah, you just got to choose joy. But actually, when I look at my life 4 or 5 years ago, there was no space to even have that morning reflection. So I think it's a choice to some people, a choice to not.
What's your joy journey? You describe a turning point around 5 or 6 years ago. What happened 5 or 6 years ago?
Stop taking drugs. No. No.
I think you're telling the truth.
We'll edit that one out, Mum.
What was the partying in escape from? I mean, why is stopping such a good thing?
I decided to slower my pace down of life, and I decided to think more carefully about my future in terms of my body and like where I'm going to be. When I first moved to London, you know, I was dressing even more extravagant or wild than I was. I was wearing dresses every day and makeup every day. And I experienced, you know, unfathomable amounts of violence and harassment. And my way of pushing against that was, if 7 people are shouting at me, filming at me in one day, I'm going to go and match that pace of living with my choices. I thought about myself in the future for the first time. And I was like, do I want to still be here in this many years? What do I have to do for that to be a thing?
I like your distinction between the oblivion of partying and the mindfulness of joy.
Yeah, and it's not that you can't find joy. I've found joy in a dance club many a times, and I still do. But it's about intentional. I think before I was doing things unintentionally, and now it's like when I go to the club and shovel my face with whatever, I've made that choice to do that. It's not just because it's Friday.
You make a distinction between the content of your work and the way it's reported, as if commentators from the outside are just leaning into trauma and pain and being harassed and being heckled. Do you think they're not quite seeing what you're bringing to the stage? They're just reporting reactively?
Yeah, I think to be a non-white, you know, black mixed, gender non-conforming person, there was a moment where it changed, where I went to certain venues where The Guardian, The Independent, all these big places, they have to review that show there because they review all the other shows there. But they'd never reviewed someone that looked like me or was talking about what I'd done. And the people that were actually writing really positive reviews, you know, 4 or 5 stars, were still using words like fury, anger, and like the things they were specifically talking about were all about my rage and challenging. Whereas when I'd read reviews by trans people or other POC, or even the review on Gaudem, it was talking about the humour that Travis found, the positionality, the content. And so this is an extension of the work that even how you're reviewing it kind of proves the point that I was saying in my show. You know, that you can go to a room where people are in fits of laughter, but how you want to talk about is the 10 minutes that made everyone uncomfortable. It's interesting because I think it then further limits what people can see me as doing.
Do you think joy is political in a sense?
Yeah, it is political because different people have a harder choice to choose joy. And so when we still get to do it, we're doing it against odds, you know? The world will do everything it can for me not to look like a cross-dresser. And I say that very proudly. I don't care about all the words I'm meant to use. Let's name it as it is. When I walk out on the street, most people in the world are viewing me as a cross-dresser. And that is loaded with so many things that shouldn't be joyful. But the fact that I can walk down the street with my friends who are also sordid, evil cross-dressers, and we laugh and take up space and sing and still make art, still find love, still do all these things, still create community, still be there for one another, haven't turned cold and bitter, because we could have, that does feel political, because everything would point to us giving up, and that would be fine. So if we manage to find pockets of joy despite that, or not manage, we always do. This is why I hate this whole victim narrative, because if you look at queer and trans black people and you go to one of our club nights or you go into one of our spaces, we are some of the funniest, most liveliest, most joyful people. And dare I say it, we're probably experiencing more joy than the people that shout at us. We have learned what it means to choose ourselves and our joy over other people's comfortability. There has to be a reason why I still decide to be myself, despite what I know the danger it may bring. And I think that reason is probably joy.
We're both in the club, as you see. Something I'm not enjoying about the current age is the way that it's easy to get work commissioned, but only if you're talking about pain and trauma and suffering and 20 different ways of how hard it is to be in a world. To me, just making work that's purely joyful, a beautiful love story, for example, that strikes me as political, that strikes me as bold. It's not just bland enjoyment.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's about us as whatever artist, insert term that they want to use for us, artists or creators, being allowed to do it all. I don't believe that work that is traumatic isn't also joyful, and work that is joyful isn't sitting on a bed of trauma. That's not how we experience life. So I'm just hoping that the complexities of our art get to still be seen, because there's certain people that are allowed three-dimensional views of their world and some that aren't given that luxury.
What's your happy place?
My favourite thing to do is get my girls together and we go to a all-you-can-eat tacky restaurant and we eat for like 3 hours and just read it out. That's my happy place. I love playing games with my friends. They hate it, but
what games? Like Monopoly?
No, I am like the queen of organised fun. I know, and everyone does that face, but I do it. I like to think I do it different.
You're going to break out a Ludo board from when you were 7 years
I would
old.
live. I love Snakes and Ladders. I really love getting the girls together against their will.
It's not even a difficult game.
No, Snakes and Ladders. Have you ever played Snakes and Ladders when you're hungover and you've got nothing else to do?
No, but I get why it's good.
Yeah, I like playing games.
Travis Alabanza. We didn't break out the Monopoly board, but we did eat 6 scoops of ice cream between us, and 4 of them were eaten by me. We humans have been bonding over food for as long as we've been on the planet. There are state banquets, and then there's Be Enriched, a community project in South London that brings people together over a hot meal. It began in 2013, and now their canteens dish up nearly 4,000 meals a year. From the volunteers bantering in the kitchen to the guests chatting in the dining room, Be Enriched is a place of comfort and joy. Me and producer Debbie sat down with founder Kemi Akinola on a busy Monday lunchtime.
Oh my God, I'm being fed.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God. Thank you. I love that. Never let me go hungry.
We're talking in this amazing community kitchen. My mouth is watering so much, it's a little bit hard for me to talk. How did this come about? Was it always this convivial place, or was it a dead, empty space before you arrived and transformed it?
Well, actually, it's a much bigger story than just this space here. Our first community kitchen was at the United Reformed Church in Tooting. The vicar there, we collaborated with her. She was so proud of it that she told the synod for the United Reformed Church. And then the vicar for this church here in Elephant and Castle heard about it and asked us to come and set something up with him in his former church, which then got knocked down to make way for luxury flats. So they got the new church built with this lovely new kitchen here. So it was built with in mind that we would be running a community meal from here.
As we're talking, the most delicious smells are drifting out of the kitchen that's just behind me. I love the phrase that you use, community meals. What does that mean to you? Not in terms of the food, but maybe the atmosphere.
Everyone is welcome at the table, and that's been very important to us. You don't have to be from any background. We don't do a check to see if you're on benefits or what your lifestyle is like. Everybody should be able to come together and share a meal. And I think it was actually at this kitchen that someone actually said to me that eating together is the most natural thing that humans do together. So it seems very natural for us to sit, satisfy that need of hunger, and once you've satisfied that need, you're then able to go on and deal with a lot of the other issues that people have in life.
Have you seen new friendships forming between unlikely allies across the meal table?
Absolutely. We run 3 of these community meals across the place, and most people arrive on their own, and after about 6 months they're arriving with other people from the canteen that they've met, or they're bringing people with them, and then we sometimes see them at some of the other meals where they've brought their friends to another meal together, or come and visit this place. It's closer to where I am, which is really beautiful.
I've had 2 lots of soup, absolutely out of this world, and this is really restaurant quality food. It's a pleasure to come and eat here and join our friends. And things like John, I've known him for quite a long time. It's nice, you actually meet friends here. Instead of sitting home on your own, it's lovely.
What for you is the connection between food and joy?
Well, for me, food is joy. There is nothing better than eating delicious food, cooking food to be enjoyed by other people. Maybe a bit creepy, but like seeing the enjoyment on people's face when they eat the food that you've prepared. I used to be a youth worker as my main job, and the only way I could get young people to come to any event was to make sure I had some good food, and that's not sandwiches. Also Nando's. They do love Nando's.
It is good. Do you think joy is somehow political? That if you were unlucky, if your life didn't happen to work out, it's harder to attain joy than if it all worked out for you and you are actually living in one of those luxury flats?
I don't know if those luxury flats are joyful to live in. A lot of them are in blocks of emptiness. I think it's about being around people. That's quite joyful. The past, 18 months where people haven't been able to see each other, I'm really happy to see a lot of these people here today, because we were very worried that they would feel lonely. Actually, I'm talking about loneliness here, and that's the real long-term effect of our projects. They reduce loneliness as well as filling people's bellies with food. So if you are down on your luck and you've got no one to support you, or you've got no one to talk to, I think that is not a joyful way to be. But being around people can really help you find that joy, and also help you feel cared for, held and thought about, which is the thing that makes a lot of difference in everybody's lives. I'm not sure what anyone here has told you, but if you've asked them why they've come, I imagine they would have said because it's somewhere we can go to meet people, and the second thing is the staff, because we're very friendly, and then the third thing is the food.
What I did overhear is someone saying, "That was yummy," and I haven't had yummy in a long time.
Oh, bless them. I hope the chefs know about that.
You want to do a little taste? Yeah? It's actually perfect. Yeah. You want to taste?
You obviously provide a really vital service, not just in terms of nutrition or eating or food, but also psychosocially. I'm thinking about those crunch point moments in the year, for example, at Christmas, when you know that most people they're supposed to be with their family, it's supposed to be a time of joy and togetherness, and for lots of people that's not a reality at all. How do you create an environment where some of that joyful spirit does come through? It's obviously not just in what you put down on the plate on the table, is it?
You're absolutely right. Christmas is a lot for us. We do Christmas over a fortnight. So
oh my God, that's my dream! I love Christmas so much. What do you mean a fortnight?
That's great. So we have 3 community meals.
My mouth is watering so badly.
We have the prep to Christmas the first week, so it's Christmas cards, making the decorations, getting people in the mood for it, and then we have an actual Christmas lunch the week after, and Santa comes and we have presents. The ukulele band of Southwest London came down and did Christmas carols, and it's a real joyful affair. And even if we can't be with people on actual Christmas Day itself, then people have had 2 weeks of Christmas. They might be Christmased out by the time it rolls round.
Sometimes we forgot the meaning of Christmas, of sharing, being together. I've been homeless in the past, disabled now. I come to the castle canteen to get a nice person to say, "Hello, how are you? You're looking so well. It's nice to see you." I like friendly attitude, not like the attitude that I'm normally facing outside.
What do you get back? It's obvious what you're providing, but people are volunteering. There are so many volunteers in the kitchen. Everyone's shoulder to shoulder and working with total concentration and dedication. What comes back to you?
For me, it's nice to see people happy and see people, really just feel very comfortable in our environment here. Every year at Christmas, as it happens, I always end up bawling tears because everyone is really happy, and I feel like just seeing people having come together, strangers that you don't know, just enjoying being in the same environment, that's really what I get out of it.
I'm talking to you in the middle of a bustling and delicious smelling room where everyone's eating and laughing and talking and enjoying themselves. I know that it wasn't such an easy road for you to get here, and that you had your own moment of hitting rock bottom and then deciding to turn it around and bring the joy for yourself. Tell me a bit about that.
Yes, when I was 23 or 24.
Oh, just 6 months ago.
I mean, that was quite some time ago. So I got hit by a car and I was in a coma, lost the use of one of my eyes and couldn't walk. And, it was a long journey. I got a whole 2 years back to being in 99% health. I had a lot of friends around me, so they were able to support me. And if I hadn't had all those friends and the family around me, I wouldn't have been able to recover at all. All that to say, I really can empathise with people that maybe something has happened in their life, one thing that has triggered a whole series of things. That means that you're just not able to recover without someone who's constantly there, like lifting you up and supporting you along the way. And one of the beauties of these canteens is that we often hear that bits of information being shared. Once someone's eaten, then they're able to say, I'm about to be evicted, or, I'm being sanctioned and I need benefits. And then another member will just say, have you called these people who can support you? And that's the beauty of building networks.
What you describe, I put it in the category of social health. Yeah. Friends and family is part of being socially healthy. Do you think social health has an impact on physical health?
100%, absolutely. I mean, if you don't feel well in your mind, even, your body then has a psychosomatic response to that, and you're not going to actually physically get better as well. It's not really catered for, and it is left a lot to the voluntary sector to provide that sort of socialising part of health. But they have started doing projects, social prescribing, which I think is buying into that sort of idea that doing things within the community can contribute to your actual physical well-being.
We're asking everyone this, without overthinking, what makes you happy?
Going to work. Is that weird?
No, but your face is glowing. Tell me why.
I have the most amazing team. I was had to isolate recently for 10 days. I was actually really upset that I couldn't go into the office and be around my team. We have great laughs. We laugh about a lot of things, actually. We do loads of work together. It's just really joyful. Like, my team are just wonderful. All of us have the right mindset, so we're all working towards ensuring there is food for everybody that is accessible and affordable.
Kemi Akinola from Be Enriched. We left her to gear up for the legendary 14 days of Christmas. It was such a joyful experience being there. We were amongst strangers, but it didn't feel that way. And I realised there's so much joy to be had from the simple passing pleasures of being in great company, sharing a meal, talking and laughing, enjoying music and performance. These are things we humans have loved since our earliest days, even our first months as newborn babies. Come on, I know you want to hear the laughing babies one last time. And that's all from this episode of Hello Happiness. Next time, we reach the pinnacle of our journey. Ecstasy, euphoria, bliss, even mania. Can you have too much of a good thing? And if you've missed any of our previous episodes, listen back to all our installments on hope, resolve, and tranquility, wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget you've got until February 2022 to experience Welcome Collection's season on happiness and its free stories, events and exhibitions on joy and tranquility. I'm Bidisha and this has been Hello Happiness. Please subscribe, spread the word, tell your friends and family and share it all. Hello Happiness is produced by Debbie Kilbride, better known as Producer Debbie. Sound design is by Mickey Curling, original music by Schuller, and the executive producer is Emily Wiles.